Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is obviously Steve Torsa. I'm the founder of Wholesale Investor. I'd like to welcome everyone to our advisor information session. I think this is the first time we've done something like this in about maybe 2 to 3 years, but it's sort of been building for a period of time where we're finding now that as a company, we're doing a lot more work and collaboration with advisors. So from a company standpoint and from a mission standpoint, this has now become a core part of how we actually work with you and how we engage with you going forward. And so in the session tonight, I'm going to be covering a couple key areas, and obviously just want to, by the way, where's everyone joining from today as a starting point? I always like to know if you're joining from Australia, from whatever state you're joining, would be good to know. Just put in the chat where you're actually joining from today. Singapore, UK, and wow. Attila, you are up early this morning, my friend. It's 6 a.m. in the UK. Singapore, Sydney, fantastic. Melbourne, who doesn't love Melbourne? Perth, Geelong, fantastic. Melbourne, Perth. I should definitely do more. I really enjoyed a session I did in Perth earlier last year, and I'm really going to make sure I get back over there. Okay, fantastic. And a lot from Singapore. Really good to see. All right, welcome everyone. Looks like the furthest away is the UK, so I appreciate you being up at 6 a.m. in the morning for this information session. That is absolute commitment. So a couple of things we'll go through today, just from a starting point. I'm just going to kick off with an introductory video just about Wholesale Investor.
All of this year has been full-time fundraising for me. It definitely takes a lot more time than I thought it would. I think the main hurdle is finding the right profile of investor for our opportunity.
How many conversations you had before getting your first investment?
Around 250.
During your race, you have to be confident that you keep that momentum going.
It's very difficult when you're trying to build a company and trying to cap raise at the same time.
The hardest thing in founding a business is raising the capital. For a business like ours, capital is oxygen. I think any founder needs to be prepared to grind. It's not an easy job.
Will we still be alive when we do finally get an investor?
How to sort the people who are really intending to invest from the people who are just kicking tires.
If you launch a cap raise and you're not prepared, then it will take you much longer, but you'll also turn off a lot of investors along the way.
We really use the platform a lot to screen people and to help us to find the investors that could make a real difference for us.
It mitigated a lot of time investment, allowed us to focus a lot on the business, and we had a great team behind us helping us.
You're a platform, an ecosystem, an integrated network we all know enables to speak to so many people around the world that we would not be able to do otherwise.
Gave us, I suppose, that discipline of getting the information out there. So, really good categories, that centralized platform that we could keep on top of all our documents. It also gave the potential investors the ability to look at the information in their own time. Having one source of truth for information for investors, you could see who had looked at your platform. It sort of prompted you to follow up.
So we've only been with Wholesale Investor about 6 months now. We've raised them $3 million through the platform.
We use Wholesale Investor's platform to raise our seed round. We raised about $1.3 million.
In fact, our US JV partner came indirectly through Wholesale Investor. We've raised somewhere between 20 to 30 million.
We just signed an agreement about a month ago for a $7.5 million project in Queensland.
One actually came through Wholesale Investor, was an introduction, and they're coming on board, and they're rolling out hundreds of sites that will have solar and battery.
Fantastic.
We've raised $3.5 million in equity to be able to build the foundations in the organisation.
As of the 1st of December, I'm now contracted as the managing director of an ASX listed company.
I feel really lucky because I think Wholesale Investor for me has listened. They've not only listened, but they've delivered and brought not only investment partners, but actually has the ability to be seen and you have extra exposure.
We came seeking finance, but we're going to leave probably doubling or tripling the size of our app by incorporating other people's tech and other ideas and things and collaborating together, which is something we were not expecting.
Did the seed raise on the Wholesale Investor platform to start our global expansion. And we'll be back to Wholesale Investor to raise our next round on theirs.
So it's not just about investment. This platform has just opened up such a massive amount of global opportunity for Rex Energy.
So I start off with that because often people hear me talking about the platform, but I'm sure it's also nice to hear what others actually say about it. And as you all guys all know, capital raising is one of the hardest areas to actually be involved in. And so, and we've obviously been doing this now for 15 years. So we would love to sort of let our clients sort of tell some of those stories. And just to give you, if you don't know me, for me, obviously, I'm the founder of Wholesale Investor and CapitalHQ. I've had 15, 16 years experience in this space. And in that time, we've built a database of 45,000. I've worked with thousands of companies in the area of capital raising, across Australia, Asia Pac, and now also in the UK as well. And for us as a company, we've become renowned now across 4 different markets, being Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, obviously ASEAN as well, like the whole sort of region, because we've been going there for 10 years. And now UK and Europe, we've been making a solid dent there for the last sort of 3 years. So, that's a bit of an introduction to me if you haven't come across me. And, to give you an idea, we've seen over 70 exits from companies that we've worked with. We've seen heaps and heaps of sort of 10x companies in that, and we've obviously seen 10 companies go on to become unicorns, and that have incredible stories. So that's a bit of an introduction to me, sort of ahead of this session. Now, companies that we've worked with in that time, it's like literally a who's who of some of the companies, whether it be crypto, whether it be family offices. Like a lot of people don't know, we're working with 10 different family offices at the moment. We can count PEP as a client of ours. We work with listed companies, we work with startups, we work with scale-ups, and it's like for us, if you have a look at that, government, we've got governments as clients as well. We're currently working on a relationship. Some of you may have seen, we had the Dubai International Chamber at our event. We're working on a relationship with them to host an event in Dubai, at the moment. So, we've done a lot. We've worked with some incredible companies, in that time. And I suppose one of the things is I'm very good at telling the story of doing our best to get our clients to articulate, but we really don't tell our own story that much, except for the sort of time in market. But we are I just saw Independent Reserves logo. Like they literally did their first capital raising in our boardroom in 2013, when crypto was just not even really a thing. At that time, and they raised their sort of first money in that time. Cubiotics, I've been with them for 15 years, and I'm still a close friend with the CEO in that time. Left Field Capital Partners, Greg Paramore is an absolute property industry legend, and someone that I'm proud to say is a client that we get the opportunity to work with. Imugene, we worked with them from when they were a 20, 30 mil market cap company and watched them go as high as 3-4 billion market cap. So it's some incredible stories. In 40X, we actually worked with them when they come out of Monash University. Like literally, they did their seed round when they come out of the university. So they're just some of the examples of companies that we've worked with in that time. And I just saw Palace Capital logo, who's one of the largest in the sort of property, the commercial industrial property area. We're very proud to be working with those guys, across now a few years. And we'll be working again for another 12 months as well. Like super incredibly, impressive people we've had the opportunity to work with. So the first question I'll have for you guys as advisors, and this is what I'd love to understand, and this is something, and I'm going to take notes while you're actually writing this, or while you're sort of giving me this, is what is your biggest challenge basically in your advisory and actually building your advisory business? If you can actually put the notes, if you can actually put your reply in the chat, that would be great. What is your biggest challenge in your advisory business? Is it getting customers? Is it the time it takes to raise money? Is it the friction point in raising? Like, what is your actual biggest challenge in your advisory business? So if you can just put in the chat, that would be great. Okay, deal origination, getting new customers, businesses, the length of the sales process. Okay, consistent pipeline. Sorry, I'm typing whilst doing this. This is actually really, I said I was really preparing for a capital raise. Yeah, it's amazing how much time, like I think for founders, that's the biggest one. They spend so much time preparing for a capital raise that, by the time they're there, like sometimes they'll work on it across months because they're doing it after hours. Preparing for a capital raise, client pipeline, funding, savings, trusts. Okay. Anything else? Seems like pipeline, accessing investors, length in the sales process, etc. I think the big one that a lot of people have talked to me about sort of in this time is pretty much the advisory model for a lot of people in capital raising can be a feast or famine model, in that, effectively it's either, you have a big transaction get away and it's a feast, or, there's sort of small fees along the way and it can be a famine period. Connecting VC investors and founders. Okay. All right. Very good feedback. So I appreciate that. I was just curious. I said, I'm probably going to do a proper survey on that because, I know when I deal with companies, I know the three key things that companies have really highlighted to us is, number one is accessing investors is a big frustration. Number two is the time it takes. Capital raising is very time consuming when you're a founder. Three being the distraction from the core business. And fourth, which is no one talks about, is the opportunity cost. So the things that you could have been working on, during a capital raise. They're typically the ones that founders highlight to us as well. So for me, basically what my objective is in doing this session, and a lot of the activities we'll be doing going forward, is that we want to empower advisors and we want to empower your services. And effectively, the way we're thinking about it is how do we help you create, the sort of 6 and 7 figure opportunity that you're currently missing out on. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. And, it could be whether it's there's a specific opportunity, there's a specific type of opportunity that you like to work with because that's your investor ecosystem. Or it could be that you may not have access to the investor network that you wish, or you may not have access to the pipeline of deal flow, etc. So for us, everything we think about is how do we create new layers of opportunities. And so this is how this has come about, and this is our focus for going forward. It's just really empowering, advisors in how you actually build your business and how you work with your customers going forward. So today's session, a couple of different components. I'm going to talk about what I see as the 3 greatest opportunities over the next decade. I'm talking about ways to generate additional revenue streams without sort of any additional overhead. I'm talking about how you can access our investor ecosystem as part of your activities. And then the one that no one really thinks about, and it's something that to be honest, I didn't do this until sort of 2020, 2021, where I was sort of forced to because of COVID, but building your own influence and brand positioning for yourself. And then also the last one is the tools that you can use, to really sort of empower your activities on a day-to-day perspective. So the first part is I'm going to tell you a quick story about myself and how we sort of got to this as an opportunity. And I suppose this is my sort of cards on the table in how we're building what we're doing. But if you go back to 2020, if you think about really this innovation space has had the roughest 5 years that you could possibly imagine. There was like a 12-month period of absolute bliss where everything felt amazing. But the truth is it's been one of the hardest periods, maybe an 18-month period. But the reality is it's been incredibly big roller coaster ride, for the entire innovation space in that last 5 years. So if you go back to 2020, I had a really sort of clutch moment when COVID come down, because effectively we were running in-person events as our sort of core revenue. And when COVID come down, like the real question was like, well, how are we actually going to make money? And it was at that time, for me, that we really started doubling down on our software solution. And I was very fortunate that, and the true story is I actually launched a capital raise, and I'll never forget it because it was pretty much one of the dumbest things that I've ever done. I launched a capital raise on March, I think it was like either March 3 or March 4 in 2020. So literally as COVID was rolling out, because what I was trying to do is I was trying to time it straight after my emergence conference, because it was such a successful conference, even though sort of COVID was coming. And because COVID was just coming on so strong at that point, all I got was no. But the challenge for me is that I did need to raise money sort of at that point. And it wasn't until basically about sort of June, July, where I realized the government stimulus, money had started to come in. And, I basically started being very proactive on the capital raise front. And then in that time, I remember raising capital in that June, July. And I remember being out the front of the Hilton Hotel, because it was at that event, I felt the maximum amount, I felt a significant amount of pressure, when I was actually at that event. And so basically when I come out, I remember just walking past it one day, and I just remember being super emotional, because effectively, basically what I'd been able to do was, even though I couldn't raise it then, I raised capital in June or July. And I just remember thinking what a miracle it was, how we'd actually survived that period, how we transformed the business, become super agile. And, then we sort of went into growth mode. And so when we went into growth mode, we did what everyone else was doing in 2020 and 2021, is we were buying growth. And in buying growth, as you know, you burn money. And so in that sort of in that process of 2020, 2021, we were scaling up, we were building team members, etc. And I remember getting to the end of sort of 2021, where I just finished a raise. And, it was at that time, I think it was like November, I saw everything really start to click in the sort of way I wanted. But then, of course, one of the challenges that happened was that they had a second lockdown in mid-2021. And then in 2022, I basically had, in sort of going throughout 2022, obviously the signs of the market slowing down have really started to come to fruition. And then at the end of 2022, basically I experienced the most challenging period of my life. And at that time, our growth model was basically a B2B growth model. And we were just hiring like lead generators, salespeople, buying data, doing all this sort of stuff. And the reality was, I realized I was sort of getting to a point where we were spending so much money on the sort of business development aspect of what we're doing, but yet still a lot of the actual revenue was still basically coming through people that were reaching out to me, or through introductions from advisors, or, referrals from existing clients, or referrals from, so it just wasn't making sense in the way it was all working out. So basically, when, instead of buying growth, we obviously then went through a sort of scaling back period in 2023. And this is where this whole model and this whole opportunity come about, because we realized that basically we are a true ecosystem. We are a true marketplace. And the key principles that come out of that for me is that I'm basically going to build a business, where we are going to be focused on empowering the ecosystem to create layers of opportunity for themselves, for the companies that they work with, and also for the investors as well. And so now, we're in a position, I said, we are not salespeople led as a business. We are very much an ecosystem play, and the way we sort of curate is a lot through the people which we refer. So hence, we made the decision to create, both the channel partner and then now obviously a specific, opportunity for advisors, so that we can empower advisors through what we do. Because effectively, as I said, my job as a company and our team's job is to be an enabler for the ecosystem. And, in doing that, if you have a look at that list of companies, that's what we've transformed to. And so it's exciting for me, if it said, when I look at the clients that we get the opportunity to work with, that is because of this ecosystem-led model. And so now, for me, this story of going through two of the biggest periods of hell for me, which was, the end of 2022 and, through the COVID period, have ended up creating this as an opportunity, and I suppose the foundational thesis for how we think about our business going forward. So when we talk about the reality of the landscape, and I asked this beforehand about the different challenges, these are some of the things which other people have mentioned to me sort of in the conversation time, that there's effectively a lot of time wasted when you're an advisor that very few people will understand. And I think the other part is that a lot of people almost expect you to work for free in how you actually do things, when it comes to capital raising. So, that's to me super important, when I think about, well, what are the actual challenges that you face on a day-to-day? I know the founders parts too well, so that's why I've sort of spent the time chatting with all of you to really understand some of the challenges that you face. And I suppose the biggest one is, it's been the hardest period in the last 16 years, over these last two, from a capital raising perspective, that we've all experienced. And I'll tell you bluntly, one of the things that makes WI work is the fact that we can be agile from an opportunity perspective. What's beautiful about our business is we've got opportunities now across private equity, private credit, venture, life science, renewable energy. Like, we can, wherever the markets go, we can go in that same direction from an interest perspective. And I suppose in the way we think about working with you is to provide you with that sort of optionality and flexibility in your own businesses as well, because markets change. And, if you can't change with the markets, you effectively just suffer through periods until they come back. It's like when I give advice to, for example, the interest in renewable energy at the moment, it was been red hot for the last sort of 2 years. And when the spotlight is on your area, you have to run as hard as possible. If you think about ESG as an area, that was the most in-demand area, a couple of years ago, and just now it's not even on the radar unless you're a big corporate or a listed company. So, these are the factors that we sort of take in mind. So we basically asked ourselves a question of how do we assist with those key areas that we can control and add value to, which is the providing access to investors, streamlining and simplifying the process, and I suppose reducing the amount of time that you have to spend on each investor conversation, etc. And then creating a larger ecosystem, with greater access to opportunity. And so, for me, they were sort of some of the core factors that we thought about in, how we want to collaborate with you going forward. So I'll just provide a bit of perspective on how I see things at the moment. And by the way, I've been saying this now for the last 12 months to give you some sort of idea. And it's just funny now that, it's really sort of starting to kick off. So the first one is business succession. If you'll watch us in 2025, you will see us make so much noise about the focus on exit, business succession, private equity, etc. It is the biggest market opportunity over the next decade. By the way, how I got to this was typically at the end of the year. So, coming up in the next few weeks, I sit down and I ask myself about my own investment thesis, right? Basically, where do I want to invest my time, energy, and obviously the capital from a business perspective? And, this is where I landed because I want to, my brain is very simple. I don't, because of the venture work that we do, I'm always have to be on top of what's hot. From a market opportunity perspective, I like to just set the direction, and then basically work towards that direction and build ecosystems around that. The next one is the private capital markets in general. If you think about listed markets, and I've done an article on this, but I haven't brought too much attention to it yet, but there's a lot less people that want to be listed company CEOs now, and the private capital markets is expanding from in 2023 from 13 trillion to 2033 they'll expand to $30 trillion. And that was from a report that was given me, I think it was from, I don't know if it was from Partners for Growth, but it was a long report as far as how big the private capital markets will be expanding to over the next decade. So, for me, they're two big opportunities that have basically got a decade long to run, that, they've got significant opportunities available inside of them. Innovation and disruption sits at our core. I think we've now tricked into the innovation bull run. This will be some of the, like I said, I gave my opening presentation on Monday where I highlighted that the last time under the Trump presidency, the NASDAQ 100 indice went up 140% across that 4-year period. There was an average compound return of 28% per year. If it was take out COVID, that goes up to like November 2019. He was still up from January 2017 to November 2019. That was a 66% increase in that time. So, we are absolutely moving into the innovation bull run. And I think this one will be on steroids because of all the different factors happening around AI, happening around robotics, etc., and also energy storage and the role all those 3 different technology platforms and blockchain as well, those technology platforms coming together. So innovation and disruption is going to be a massive growth area over the next decade, and it's absolutely set in stone, or I shouldn't say, because there's always the opportunity for World War III. But it's set in motion, for the next 4 years. And then the last one is non-bank lending. So private credit in Australia now represents about 10, and this is from our events. So that's my source. 10% of funding of debt funding in Australia. In places like the US, it does represent 80 to 90%. In the UK, I think it's somewhere around sort of 55 to 65%, maybe 60 to 70%. But either way, Australia's tiny when it comes to private credit. So it's a big opportunity going forward. You're starting to see a lot more players in it. We're fortunate enough, we're working with established players that have been around 5, 10, 15, 20 years in this area. So there is a lot more opportunities and there's a lot more products being created in this non-bank lending area for high net worths and family offices. So, I said, I think for advisors, giving yourselves opportunities around these 4 areas basically puts you in a position where effectively it really doesn't matter what is seasonally happening with different tech areas and so forth. You can create your self an opportunity, across the next decade. And it's an easy way to think about it, because then it helps you sort of plan how you want to make your next moves. For me, the other thing I'll factor in, and I don't know how much you guys use different AI tools and different software platforms, etc. But the blunt thing I could say is one person now can really have the output and productivity of 3 to 5. I've told people, I've used examples for myself, right? And I don't expect people to be like me. But I will tell you, I have personally replaced, in far as and I had to do this out of necessity, just to be clear. But typically I find people's use of AI depends on how much either how much of an early adopter they are or how much they need to do it out of necessity. In my case, I gave you my story about the end of sort of 2022. Well, obviously, what else got launched at the end of 2022? It was 2023, right? So effectively, a lot of what I was doing was replacing what was happening on the business development and the marketing side, which was ultimately 16 people, right? But so when I say 3 to 5, that's not hyperbole in any way. Like if you actually use it, it's easily 3 to 5 of what you can do. And there's so many cool tools out there. And maybe it's because I've got, I'm undiagnosed ADHD, that I'm a junkie for trying to find out what sort of opportunities. So the other part to this is, the macro factors that really affect what we do. So, and this is where I start to see all this from an opportunity perspective line up. So firstly, at the start of this year, sorry, I'm already saying last year. At the start of this year, I highlight to everyone there's going to be 4 macroeconomic factors that will play a role in triggering the next innovation bull run. Interest rate plays a big role. They're already now down 0.75% in the last 2 months. Right, the US elections, we literally saw within the week of those elections, $2 trillion of value created across public stock markets and also the crypto markets. If that's not a bull signal, I don't know what is. Companies like Tesla in the last 30 days have gone up something like 50%, right? Crazy stuff. Like from Elon's perspective, that was the ultimate investment, $150 million on an election campaign and potentially putting his life on the line, for $300 billion return in his company. And with his 13% holding, you're looking at, potentially a $40 billion personal net wealth increase for $150 million. Solid investing right there. But with those 2 factors in motion, then you've got setting in sights that, there's going to be dry powder coming off the sidelines for people that have been afraid to invest, not knowing what's happening from the market's perspective. And then the last one, there's obviously been a massive period of quantitative tightening, because of people being concerned about inflation. Well, now this looks like it's moving to the other side, where there's going to be that quantitative easing sort of start, where sort of money comes back into the system from the different central banks. So, if those 4 factors kick into motion all at one time, as I said, just be prepared what comes for the next bull run. And I'll tell you, for all of us that have had a challenging, been under pressure for a 2-year period, this represents, probably the ultimate sprint period for the next sort of 4 years in what we can do from our own business perspective. So, I hope that sort of sets the framework for how I think about things and how we see things. And by the way, this is not me being a genius. This is me just talking to lots of people, absorbing lots of content, and then effectively coming up with a thesis which is relevant for the space that we're in. So our mission for advisors is really, really simple. We know that you guys are fantastic at what you do. I speak to a lot of advisors, and basically, to me, I think about how can we help give what help you sort of scale what you're doing, help you monetize other activities more, and then also make more of an impact on the companies that you're working with, not just locally but also internationally as well. And some of the other key components, I know this whole space is being built around, and I know you may even promote this for yourself from an advisor perspective. Yeah, someone wrote, I'd love to avoid World War III. Me too, Phil. That'd be a great thing to avoid. I know a lot of you, what you sell is, I've got, a network of investors behind me, but the reality is, in going forward, that's just not going to be a big selling point. To me, I want to make it so that, we sort of, we can sort of democratize that access to capital, and we'll just keep on doing our best to keep on building a global investor base that people can access, build relationships with, etc. And I said, I know it takes time. I know it's not an overnight thing. I know, and I also know that you have demands from clients who expect things instantaneously. But, this is part of how we want to assist. Next part is on the tools and resources. You guys have seen what we've been building, and I'm going to send in my sort of follow-up email from today. I'm actually going to send you a demonstration of our software. I want you to see exactly how you can utilize what we've done. I want you to see how you can streamline your process. I want you to see how you can access our investor network as part of it as well, because I said there's no point doing things in sort of singularity at this point. To me, this is the greater we can build an ecosystem, the greater we can build an opportunity. And then the last part is how do we take what your specific expertise is and then build that into thought leadership, and then also, help that in creating sort of more inbound traffic and also more client success stories. If you've noticed in the last, as I said, I did not start doing videos until 2020. And the only reason I started doing it is because COVID forced me to. Before that, I was too shy, didn't like cameras, barely did even information sessions like what I'm doing now. Right. And now I sort of got used to doing videos. And to be blunt, I don't enjoy doing videos about capital raising, because it's a super weird thing when you're doing videos about capital raising and then raising capital for your own business. It's the most awkward thing in the world. But the reality is I do it because I just know that, what a lot of people sort of teach about capital raising is create pitch deck, send out to investors, wait for money to come back in. And that creates issues for all of us, right? It creates issues for you as an advisor because you have clients with these unreal expectations. And it creates issues for us as a platform because I have companies coming to me saying, hey, I want to raise $5 million in the next 2 months and I want minimum check sizes of $1 million. And then I have to turn around and say, well, typically how I always work with people is they always tell me what they want as a starting point. And then often by the time, companies are finished, it's like, when companies start a capital raise, it's all about what they want. By the time that they're into the capital raise, they'll pretty much take whatever they can get, and that's the truth about, capital raising over the last couple of years. But the key part is I think everyone's got different skills. Everyone's got thought leadership. And I know some of you on this call personally where you're fucking absolutely incredible. And it's like, well, how do we actually create more visibility for that more than just sort of one-to-one? It's like, well, every person you meet can think you're amazing, but how can we do that sort of at 10, at 100, at 1,000, etc. So that's the other part we've sort of been thinking about. And then the last part is how can we sort of build that ecosystem where we are creating global opportunities? So when I thought about what does this network effect multiplier look like? Well, firstly, amplification and visibility is a key part, relentless momentum. One of my favorite clients, Gary, spoke to me today. He goes, mate, I have to give you credit. I know I say this to you, but I feel like you're almost omnipresent when you're dealing with me. I feel like almost, and the reality is, if you think about it, after 16 years, who is Wholesale Investor's main competition? Whether it be Australia, whether it be Singapore, whether it be the UK, who is our main competition? I know people think about the equity crowdfunding platforms, but they're not our competition because they take success fees. And so you think about that, you think there's been millions of platforms in the last 15 years come and go. And the reality is what makes us work is we are relentlessly consistent. And we're doing stuff like this. We're creating opportunities. We're doing events. We're trying stuff. We're failing at stuff. We're succeeding at other things. As you probably realize, I'm not afraid to fail at different stuff, right? But I'm always willing. We did a CapitalHQ Investor Day completely focused on M&A. And we made that decision 3 weeks out because we were getting no traction for a demo day, right? And it turned out to be incredibly successful. So, that's, networks and opportunity access is also part of it. And then collaboration. As I said, we're in now a fortunate position where a lot of what we do is either inbound, referrals, and renewals and upgrades from companies that we're dealing with, right? And this is in the hardest area to operate. You guys all know it. How many times do you often work with a company across 2 to 3 capital raises? It's very rare. But yet, what does every investor that's looking at investing into WI ask me about? Right. And yet everyone knows how hard it is to work with a company across multiple capital raises. But these are have been the keys to our success. And the amplification and visibility part is we've really only started that in the last few years. And like just recently, we added writing articles for our clients, which is completely new for us, right? And it's actually had a better response than what we were expecting. So, that's some of the key parts. So here's what we're sort of thinking of how can we actually empower, your advisory over the next 90 days? And I use 90 days specifically because that sort of aligns with, our biggest activity coming up, which is our Emergence Conference. So, and I'll give sort of an indication of what that actually looks like. Now, I realize I'm already at 38 minutes. So as part of that, I thought, well, how can we create a structure which helps you generate additional 100K worth of revenue? How can we help build your advisory, build your brand, your personal industry brand? Get access to a wider network, generate new deal flow and opportunities, and then create new layers of opportunity for your own business, right? So, they're the things that we thought about, from how can we have something which is a bit of an injector, a starter, a turbocharger, whatever analogies you want to use to sort of describe that. And so we really thought, well, the foundations of that come from, firstly, deal flow and revenue generation. Investor access is going to be a key part of that. Building your own brand, building your own personal networks is another aspect. And then obviously just becoming super efficient in what you do. And I just can't underestimate how much more productive every single one of you can be with tools, to the point that, I'm going to start giving more sort of content around the different tools that I'm using on a day-to-day basis. And that we are as a company as well. Like, as you probably realize, I don't really care about giving away our secret sauce or the stuff that we do day in and day out, because whatever we're showing you today, we're working on something new for the future. So to me, the 2025 advisor is basically software and AI driven, right? On all levels, right? Is looking at how it can create additional revenue streams, is basically got global reach to opportunities, is providing sort of thought leadership and content to help sort of create wider networks, and then is leveraging other investor networks for their own distribution, right? So it's basically seeing their thing. It's not just about you. It's like, how do you create this bigger play, for yourself, because there is a lot more resources that you can access. So here's some of, basically here's our solution for how we can actually empower you on the advisory front. So the first one is, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but just to understand our impact, at the moment, effectively, this is us, this is what we do day in and day out. This is the kind of network we've been able to create. And as I said, how consistent we are. Our offering and how we work with companies covers 5 key areas. It basically really leans into what's called the mere exposure effect, where it's creating multiple touch points, for an investor with a company. And if you think about the buying processes of anyone, it's awareness, consideration, and then decision. Everyone thinks that capital raising is awareness to decision. Basically, to me, it's really about, I've really focused on that consideration component. So all these 5 points here is around that sort of awareness and engagement component, because ultimately it's in the investor's mind to make a decision. We can't force them to do anything. But that consideration component and the awareness component, we can absolutely play a role in actually assisting. So in CapitalHQ, we've obviously got our own proprietary investor database, which is over 45,000. Where you get 45,000 is actually, that's the Wholesale Investor database as well. We've obviously got into global database, global investor access through the integrations we've done inside CapitalHQ. We've built into the platform two-way matchmaking so that companies see the most relevant investors for them and investors see the most relevant companies for them. We've integrated our conference software in there, so you can go in now, you can see all our previous events, you can see all the investor attendees in there, and we make it super easy for our clients to be able to reach out to ones which they think are relevant for them in that investor networking zone. And then there's investor search functionality. So the simple way of saying is imagine walking into an investment bank and saying, can I, basically say, can I access your investor clients? Can you filter them for me so that they're relevant? And then can I connect with them directly, right? And then best of all, can I do that on subscription based? Well, that's effectively what we've done with our software solution. So basically the opportunities that, because of what we're across, basically, as part of this, it means that you can actually start working with a different type of deal set than you're currently working with, or basically generate revenue from. And I know that for most advisors, you'll have deal flow come to you all the time, and you'll often say no to it because, it's not in your wheelhouse, it's not your skill set, and you're typically not working with those companies. So that's a key part. Someone's just showing me a link to our mergers website. Thanks, Phil. I'll let the team know. So basically the idea is that to give you a wider range of opportunities of companies that you can actually work with going forward, and then this is where we'll be basically building these are all the different types of deals that we're across right now. So you're all in the advisory space, you're all working with companies, you often have companies come to you and they want to raise capital. Basically what I want to provide advisors with the opportunity to actually add value to those companies. And you may not need to take on their advisory. You may not need to actually be the one raising money for them. You could just provide them as an introduction to us, or you may want to work alongside them and actually do their raise. It's about giving yourself more optionality in how you do it. And then the second part, is really about, we can now do what we've been doing for companies, that mere exposure effect. For the first time in our company's history, we're actually going to be doing that for other firms as well. Is where we want to, the way I've been doing now thought leadership through, through the different emails and through content and so forth, we want to provide that to our advisory partners going forward. And, we've obviously got a lot of different avenues in which we can actually do that. And then the operational efficiency part, obviously, I'm going to talk about CapitalHQ. There's a lot of different parts to that. The last part that in CapitalHQ, I'm going to send you a video. I won't spend too much time because I'll send you a demonstration video. That will speak better than what I can say about, how you can actually utilize it for your advisory purposes. The last one is, as I said, we've built out an entire dashboard of prompts for every part of our business. And, what we're going to start doing now is we're going to start making those available so that people can actually use them in their own businesses as part of this process, because why spend hours on something when you can spend seconds? And that's the way we think about it. As I said, whatever we share today, we're already working on what's coming next, in the future. So by the numbers, just to give you a bit of an idea, we have 20,000 views per month on the website. On the emails, we have 22,000 of our subscribers engaged each month. For events, we have anywhere between 500 to 1,000 attending our in-person events every month. When we do a dedicated email, they typically have 33% open rate, anywhere between 6 to 12% click-through rate. And obviously every deal is a bit different as far as what the actual response, it really depends on the opportunity. And for whenever we do information sessions like this, we typically have 100 to 250 registrations for those. So for example, the alien one we did, I think we had like 180 or something. I've done somewhere, I've also had over 200, etc. But that just gives you a bit of an idea of, some of the numbers on the product side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you a bit of an introductory to the options we've now created specifically for advisors and how we can actually work and collaborate with you. So firstly, all that's included as part of it. This is our focus and this is basically what you can, articulate to your clients about how the easiest way to articulate it to companies is that this can become their sort of centralized sort of source of truth for their capital raise. And the idea is to simplify it in helping access investors, streamline and simplify their raise, but also have actual capital raising intelligence as far as what's actually going on with their raise. And by the way, I'll make this absolutely clear. This is not just for our investors. We encourage companies to invite their own investors in. Like, for example, we've got a company that's basically going through an M&A process at the moment, utilizing our software with people they've invited in. We had one of our clients recently have a significant US family obviously invest into their business. So they just invited into the room. And he was the one that said to me, he goes, what I loved about the rooms, it allowed me to tell the story beyond the numbers. And as soon as I heard that, that made logical sense to me. And Magnum, I still struggle to understand how to articulate what he actually does. Similar thing. He's not just he's used it for the raise, but he also, raised a significant amount from his own investors and also external groups, for some significant projects. So basically the core inclusions for advisors is all this fun stuff. The most important to take away from this is that there's no limit to how many companies that you can actually work with the subscription. And there's also no limit to how many investors you can actually invite into a room. And effectively, basically all these different elements come included as part of it. Now, once again, I won't spend too much time. After we can have a chat, I can actually send you the brochure that has these details in it. the way we've broken up the subscription offerings is we realize that effectively everyone's got different levels of activity that you have in your business. And we thought about the way we've done it is typically a lot of these inclusions are what we'd have in our normal packages for companies. But the reason we've done it for you is so that you can then offer it to your companies as well. So to give you an example, there's some advisors that we work with where effectively they've become a subscriber of this package, and then effectively they've gone and on-sold the different components of that to basically, you know, not only just recoup their investment, but basically generate additional revenue streams from actually doing that. So there's a couple of different options. The main difference in them, you know, is really the dedicated email is basically a prime product for us. You know, we often, you know, for just the dedicated email itself, we can charge typically, you know, anywhere between typically it's around the 8K mark for a dedicated email. For participating in a live investor event, $9,750 as an example. And there's something coming down the pipeline, you know, as far as the promoted and hosted webinars or dedicated information sessions. In something like that, we'll do 2 dedicated emails. We'll actually host the information sessions. We'll do all the calendar invites. And then also they get the company gets or you as the advisor get all of the people that actually registered for that. So this is structured in such a way that basically you can generate additional revenue from this on top of your core advisory business. So on the base silver subscription, it's $14,950 per year. Now, obviously, you can break that down to a 12-month subscription. On the gold subscription, which does include the ability to present at a conference, it also means that you can have a trade stand at our conference as well. So these subscriptions is not just about promoting your clients, it's also about promoting yourself as well. So you can have a trade stand at our event, at our conference, whether it be Emergence or Venture and Capital, it's up to you, or it could even be our Singapore conference, it's your choice. But most importantly, you can then start getting discounted access to our offering. So for example, if you use up all the different components of this subscription, effectively, when you offer it to companies going forward, you can either offer it as a discount to your clients, or you can take the 25% margin on CapitalHQ. And our subscription offerings with CapitalHQ go from 5K to 20K. For Wholesale Investor, it's between 10K and 30K to give you an idea. But as I said, I'll include all this for you in an email sort of post, and when we have our discussions. On the platinum subscription, we would actually also, not only do you get all the different inclusions that you could, you know, pass on to companies, but effectively you can also become a gold sponsor of our Emergence conference, which means you can have the choice of doing a presentation at it, or actually participating on a panel session as well. So, you know, there's some, and then one of the other aspects that's coming down the line is we're going to be building a portal feature. So you can have all your own companies, you'll basically have a partner area, and you'll have all your opportunities basically in that portal feature, which will mean that you can effectively promote all the opportunities that you're working with. And that's important. As I said, we don't limit what you actually do with that. Now, as part of this information session, I do have a special offer for November. And of course, this is part of me sort of launching this in this sort of wider format. This has been offered only to people, you know, only to advisors that we've had built relationships with, you know, previously. But I thought I really want to open this up now because, as I said, I'm pretty ambitious about what can potentially happen in the markets over the next sort of 4 years. And I want to make sure that those people that are in our ecosystem that have been supporting us get the opportunity to access that. So only for the month of November, we're doing our absolutely craziest offer of providing lifetime access for you, basically to CapitalHQ for your advisory business, which means that you can basically, you know, you can run your deals, your companies that you work with going forward can all utilize a subscription offering. And to me, that is an absolute game changer offering, because it means that for every company that you're working with, you've got a systematic process and a flow that you can work with, the amount of time you can save in the actual process, etc. And, you know, likewise, the investors that you can access in that period. And that comes also inclusive of all the different tools and features that we'll be adding going forward around generative AI and etc. So, you know, the other thing that I'll highlight is that As an extra, you also receive, and as I said, I want to help you make as much money as possible over the next 90 days, right? And so that means that as part of this, inside those subscription offerings, you can utilize that to actually feature your companies at Emergence 2025. So we will have between 750 to 1,000 high net worth family offices, executives, deal makers, etc., across those 2 days. As if you've been to it before, it's our biggest event that we host each year. You can promote your own business at the conference with either a dedicated trade table, or if you're a gold subscriber, you actually get a speaking spot for the event as well at the platinum. Sorry, if you're a platinum subscriber. So you get to promote your own business for that deal flow perspective, lead generation, etc. So the ultimate outcome is that you're, basically helping your clients raise money, from those activities, and you're also building up new pipeline and business for your own business as well for the year ahead. And the best part is you've got the ability to pay it across 12 months via our third-party provider, which is Procure. So effectively what that means is that even though you get 12 months to basically, to pay the subscriptions, you can actually generate a significant amount of revenue, in that sort of 90 days leading up to the Emergence conference, and then also post the Emergence conference as well, right? So it's basically like a bit of an arbitrage in value in the way in which we've structured it. And we've obviously designed that specifically because we know that, we want you to win as much as possible in that first 90 days. And there's no better way to do that than to leverage off something like Emergence, where people absolutely come out of the woodwork to be involved in. So a summary, to me, I think we're entering the golden age for this space with 3-decade-long market opportunities. That we're creating new revenue stream. We want to help you create new revenue streams as part of it. Plus, this next phase, we really want to help people who want to obviously build their brand and build their authority across this space, build their thought leadership, and generate new clients from it. Streamline your capital raising process. Be visible and accessible to our investor ecosystem. We've spent millions of dollars and 15 years building, and then also leverage our enterprise grade tools as part of it. So the final part is that I'm a big believer for this. Is my job is to help create new layers of opportunity, and that's why we've put together this as an opportunity. So the next steps from here is I'm going to send an email tomorrow morning to everyone. I should basically invite you to have an introductory call with me. Said love to know what you're doing, what you're across, the types of opportunities you seek. I was speaking to someone today. They're basically working with something like 6 to 8 opportunities. Absolutely perfect for the types of opportunities that they're working with. Big part for me is, if anyone knows me, obviously I do a lot of curation for our companies that we work with. I'm a big fan of making sure there's alignment in what you're looking to do and what we're doing. And sometimes I do, like this, I know there's someone on this call, I create opportunities when I think there's alignment and I'm not touching into an area. And then also sort of next part is discussing the relevant options available, and also having a bit of strategy session on sort of what you're exactly across and then how to actually make the most of it. So that is it from me. I will remind that the lifetime access component is only for the month of November. I know it's an absolutely crazy, ridiculous offer. Going forward, it'll be a 12-month basically subscription as part of it. But basically that CapitalHQ component is, basically a lifetime access that you can utilize for all the clients you have in your pipeline now and all the clients you'll have going forward with your company. So thank you everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope that sort of made sense in how we think about things and how we're trying to create opportunities for you guys as advisors. This is, something that I'm really excited about and passionate about building going forward. And obviously I'm going to make this video available for anyone who wants to sort of get further information on it. And as I said, happy to have a discussion with anyone, happy to have a discussion with you about the different advisory options that we've sort of put forward today in the session. Now, is there any questions anyone would like to ask ahead of that, or otherwise said happy to ask your questions sort of one-on-one, but I always like to give the opportunity for chat at the end. If you have any questions, just put it in the chat. All right, no questions. Now, apologies, it looks like I've gone 15 minutes over, so next time I'll know that this will be an hour session. Thank you again, everyone. I really appreciate your time. I said this is, I think, whilst it's been one of the most challenging periods over this last sort of 2.5 years, the absolute platform is set for growth, high growth. and high yield opportunities. And whatever we can do to collaborate to make the most out of that, let's create an opportunity over this next 4 years, because it's pretty exciting, what we can actually do. And also, let's see how we can help bring together international markets as part of this. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and I will speak with you soon.